Coming up, Xbox One. That's right. We ran all about the Xbox One event. We're going to tell you why we're excited about the new Kinect and some surprising new information about the Xbox One that you didn't hear at the event, but we got the insight on and why you shouldn't give up on Microsoft gaming just yet. We got all that and more on this episode of Downloaded. Hey, welcome to Downloaded. This is the show where we gather the most opinionated voices in the tech field today, focus all that energy on the stories that are impacting the tech world today. I'm your host, Jim Louderback. Joining me, I'm glad to say, Adam Sessler from Rev3 Games. Adam, it's good to have you back.
Good to be here.
Thank you very much.
In one piece.
In one piece. I wouldn't want to have you here in multiple pieces. And also back from Powit TV, Justin Severson. Justin, it's great to have you here as well.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And so let's jump right into the thing that I was consuming you all week, Adam.
Yes.
Which is why you are happy to be in one piece, which was the launch of the Xbox, wait, so the 720? No, wait, what do they call it?
It's not the Infinity, it's not the 720, it's the One.
The One, oh
the
yeah.
One.
One box to rule us all, one box to bind us in the darkness. It's like, this is the
exactly.
Lord of the living room, right?
It is, and you know, assuming that they can deliver on what they said, I think they have a shot at it. I know there's a lot of negative attention on it because they focus so little on games, but as the day went on, it occurred to me that Microsoft, I don't know if this was a wise decision, but they're really looking at a two-part E3 press conference. And what we got this week was the boring part, or the non-gaming related part. And I thought there was some really fun stuff in terms of how Kinect uses like the switching from Skype to your television. I mean, they really are trying to create this hub for your entertainment. I think it was lost on a lot of people because they are trying to future-proof this system. And there's certain things they're anticipating down the line, such as we're not going to be using DVRs because it's all on demand. You know, we're going to have our HBO Go. Maybe we'll start to see that from Showtime. I think they do have that. But maybe some of the other cable providers. That's kind of the future they're focusing on. But since that future isn't now, I think it left a lot of people kind of befuddled, in addition to just going, where are the games? They showed two types of games, sports and Call of Duty. Gamers are not too enamored of both of those types of franchises of games.
Well, so we can talk about the fact that gamers are pissed in a minute, but you know, what did we learn? Like, what was the new thing or things that came out that you were like, oh, that's great?
The idea that you can take your existing cable box, route it through your Xbox. It does sound a little bit arduous, but the effect you got is, in conjunction with the Kinect and the voice commands on the Kinect, a rather simplified way of trying to traverse and set up your favorites, that you just sort of talk to your TV, you say, if you want to see something on FX, I like to show the Americans, FX or the Americans, and boom, you find yourself on that channel or one of your apps that collates that video.
Justin, I don't know if you've ever used a Google TV, but this sounds like what Google TV did when it first came out, whereas, you know, Google TV said, we don't want to replace television, we just want to enhance television. Does that sound like something you'd use?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. What struck me at Microsoft's conference is it seemed a lot like an Apple press conference, almost, where they talked about all these really big ideas that you're going to love.
Yeah.
Nobody has any experience with any of those things yet.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't really get why that's such a big deal.
Right.
But I think that there's a lot of compelling technology there. And once you get it in your living room and you see what it's capable of, you're going to find out that, wow, this is really amazing, and I don't know how I lived without it.
So what was one of the things as you were following this that you were like, aha moment, that maybe it was something you'd use that you didn't think you'd even use?
I think the voice control and the Kinect sensor being such a better piece of technology than what exists now. It's really delivering on the promise, I think, of the original Kinect, being able to log you in automatically when you walk in, recognize you, and be able to say, Xbox on, watch Community, and it just goes.
I think it's also, you know, the speed. They're explaining that they have two independent OSs. One's going to handle the entertainment, one's going to handle the games, and the speed with which you're swapping between television to game, and then they've added Skype to it. And I think the other nice thing about the Skype, it's 1080p. You're actually getting a video signal where I think for some of us, we're going to be embarrassed to be seen in 1080p, but for the beautiful people out there, you know, it's something that seems a little bit more immediate. And one thing that was announced today, I actually had a source that confirmed this to me as well, that when the Skype comes in, you can allow them access to your Xbox. So let's say you're stuck on a game.
Oh, interesting.
Sony has presented the same thing, but it was unclear when they were going to actually put this into the PlayStation 4. This sounds like it's going to be there at launch, that you have this way that you can really, it makes the social feel more practically social rather than that barrier, be it Twitter or Facebook, that you're trying to communicate with people.
Well, and I think that they're spot on with the use of Skype and with the Kinect. I remember the Kinect first came out. We put it on our Xbox Christmas. I think my son was about 10 years old. And, he played with it for a minute, but then he got on Xbox Live, and all the boys that he'd been playing with for a year or two that he'd never seen, they all started taking their Kinect and going, this is my dog, this is the view out my window. So it really turned into more of a communications tool, and then they all started not using it. Everyone ignored it. But the sense that it can bring people together, I think, is a really interesting aspect of it. How would you use that to make calls? Like, if you want, is there a reason to give your mom a Kinect?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, it's nice to be able to walk in and say, Xbox, call mom.
Right.
And be able to talk to her face to face. You can do that, with FaceTime, but you've got to go find your device.
Right.
Call her. You've got to be on Wi-Fi for a lot of people. To be able to do it so seamlessly, I think is really amazing.
And it's hands-free. I mean, with FaceTime, your ability to say reference something, while you're holding the iPad or whatever tablet you have. I mean, it's just those small things that are kind of nuanced. I think people would discover over time that there is something liberating about it.
You got to remember a product that Cisco released about a year or two ago called the Yumi. They were going to revolutionize personal video conferencing. And it was this like $1,000 per seat device. You put on your TV and connect two together. They only talk to each other, and everyone would be all happy. And $1,000, and then it was like $20 a call or $20 a month.
See, and I think you've hit on it, Jim. That because the Xbox is so multifaceted in the way it can appeal to various members of a household, that's where I think they have the right angle. That it's not saying this is just a communication device, this is just a games device, this is just an entertainment device. It's doing all three things. You kind of put it in there, and within one household, various members will find their own way of interacting with it and utilizing it.
And the calls are also free, right? So if you call from one Xbox to another, I assume you need Xbox Live or a Gold or something like that. I don't know if they laid that out or not.
That's where they haven't, but that's where all the revenue is going to be generated. It's going to be on these subscriptions. That currently it's about $20 a month for Xbox Live. I hope they keep it at the same price. I could even see them bump it up because that is the centerpiece. It really isn't about the box. It's about the back end. It's about the cloud. It's about all the communications.
Yeah, Justin, go ahead. You were going to jump in on something.
I was just going to say, they're not selling it on the video calling. That's just one of the many things that it does. And when you package all of those things together in a way that everything works together, that is really compelling. It wouldn't be compelling if it was just the Skype
$2,000, $20 a month to make a video call.
Right.
So what did you not learn that you wanted to know, Justin?
They talked about a lot of stuff that sort of made me ask a lot of questions, like you buy the disc, you put it in, you register it, it works on your account.
Right.
Then you just you have the disc.
Well, see, that's really interesting. So the whole, and I agree with you, that whole idea of when I buy a game, I have to register it to my account. And then I can't just give the physical media to somebody else and let them play because it's still registered to me, and the whole rental market's done, and GameSpot's going out of business, and it's all just,
So I got some clarification, and this goes to where Microsoft really muddied their messaging yesterday. Yeah. They didn't even address used games formally at the presentation, even though this was forefront on the minds of every core gamer out there. And then a Wired article was posted that gave the impression that they're going to block used games. In addition, in one of the interviews that we were allowed to have, I did not conduct this myself, it was my colleagues over at Kotaku, Phil Harrison, one of the highest ranking people there, more or less said it wouldn't do used games, but there was some way that you could trade in this registration. The messaging just went into this free fall. I was speaking to a source last night, and this is someone who I do trust and has pretty much bat about 800 with me, excuse me. That what we're looking at is you get the disc. You do not input a code as you would currently be doing with the PC game. It's in there in the disc, and it locks it to the hard drive and to your profile. People at your own home, be it your brother, your father, they can also access that game unless you've decided by parental controls to prohibit that. Now, if you go over to a friend's house and you give them the disc, it will install it, and it will actually lock itself to that Xbox unless you get that disc back into your Xbox, possibly within a 24-hour window. It might be a little bit longer than that.
I'm confused already.
It's a tough concept. I get why they didn't present this.
Is this going to be a SimCity thing all over again? I put SimCity on my computer, by the way.
I don't see that. It's a fairly simple, there's nothing that we can contrast it to. So it allows for used games. Yeah. But once you've allowed that disc to go onto another Xbox, then within 24 hours, you will lose access to the game on your own hard
For
drive.
24 hours. Okay, interesting.
Now, it may, when I'm saying 24 hours, that could be the one thing that's in flux, how wide that window is.
Right.
It probably won't be shorter than 24 hours. It might be, a week. It might be. I think the closest correlation is when you're streaming a movie, and once you start it, you have 24 hours to finish it.
Yeah, right. That actually kind of makes sense, I guess. I mean,
actually.
Did you follow that? Do you think it makes sense, Justin?
It sounds like what Microsoft really wants to do is move towards a purely digital distribution model.
Yes.
And that they've come up with this really convoluted way to still appease the people who want to go to the store and buy a disc and be able to trade it back in to GameStop.
Well, physical medium isn't going anywhere, at least for the next couple of years, right?
Right, and that's what I'm saying about the future proofing, is that they've put the system in there and allowed this rather tortured way that you can move physical media around in anticipation that 5 years from now, we'll be laughing at this conversation we're having.
So you bring up a good point on future proofing, and remind me, because I know we were at the original Xbox launch together when it was at CES. We were about the Tech TV, or it was the ETV then, I can't remember when. But the original Xbox, and then what was it, like 4 years later, the 360 came out, right?
It launched in 2000. No, I think about 6 years later, we got ourselves the 360. So it was a much shorter lifespan than the one that we've endured with the 360.
Well, and we all sort of thought the 360 would be another 4 or 5 years on the next one. But the lifespan of these boxes is getting bigger, longer and longer and longer, right? Whether it's the PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Wii, which, these things
This
last
might be
forever.
the last console. And they said that to me, that this could very well be all they need to do, because in their mind, they can see more of the computations and to improve the boxes offloaded to the cloud rather than within the device
See,
itself.
I don't know. Video rendering still, there are things you're going to want to do local. But the idea is, as you said, this is not a 5-year box or a 7-year box. This is probably a 10-year box, right?
The thing which I don't really totally love about the idea of offloading the computational stuff to the cloud is that I can still plug in my NES and play Super Mario Brothers on a TV. What's going to happen, in 20 years from now? Am I going to be able to play some of these Xbox One games?
I know it's an excellent question, and I think that's the one that's kind of present in everyone's mind. This is one of the instances where I wish Microsoft would just say, I don't know, because I think this is kind of an unknown. I almost look at what they're doing as this inevitable thrust towards things going to the cloud, everything existing digitally, and that somehow we're just going to get accustomed to it, and the transient nature of our media that we probably will be losing over time. As someone who studied video games and followed them for so long, I'm panicked about the archival qualities, that there's stuff that we're losing that we aren't able to hold on to because we can't play it, or no one's really kind of stored it and there's no library for it.
Well, like what?
We see
just old games.
We see some of that now with Xbox Live Arcade. There have been, I think the Ninja Turtles games are a great example of that, where I think it was Ubisoft lost the license for the games that they put on Xbox Live Arcade. And if you had bought them already and have them on your console, you can still play them. But if you're hearing this and you decide, oh, I want to check out that remake of Turtles in Time, you can't buy that. You cannot have that experience unless somebody already has that game.
Well, so let's explore that a little bit more, because I'm pretty concerned that the Xbox One will not offer any backward compatibility with 360 games. Should I be concerned about that? Is that a problem?
It's backwards compatibility is something of a MacGuffin. It tends to get people very, very upset, and this happened with the PS3. Well, excuse me, not with the PS3. This happened with the Xbox 360. Because Xbox games didn't transfer over. And in the run-up to the launch of it, and maybe for a few months following, people are very upset because they haven't built a large enough library to the new console. The thing is, what you're getting in return is a much better architecture of the console. It's framed more like a PC. It's going to keep costs down. These very high costs on game development are going to be down far more, because it's not unique to this architecture. In addition, we're probably going to see more good games coming out with greater frequency. So there is a trade-off, but in all the times that this backwards compatibility issue has come up, within a year of the new console coming out, it
has to go away. Deal. Well, look, I haven't even played, although we have it at home, I haven't played the latest Halo yet. I still want to play it. I wish I could pre-order the Xbox One. I went on Amazon and I said, okay, let me know when I can pre-order, because we're going to get one. But I see a world where I'm going to have my Xbox 360 here, my Xbox One here. I got no room for anything else in my closet or wherever I put it.
No, and actually, my fellow game journalists are quite anxious right now that without the backwards compatibility and the idea that legacy games are probably going to be going through 2014, that's suddenly 5 different consoles that we need to have. And I have a nice thing under my television to store stuff. I don't have something that big.
Well, but it also, like, what about some of the DLC or the Xbox arcade games we were talking about, where are they going to be moved to the new platform? Like, for example, I'm super excited about this, the Wolf Among Us, the new Telltale Games series that's coming out. That comes out for the 360. Will it come out for the One as well? Or what about, and I know this is PC only right now, but what about Broken Age? Or I haven't played Cave yet. All these games that I want to play, I'm like, do I have to play them now, or they're all gone?
Well, if they are playing on PC, if you can get them on Steam, there's a good chance it will be available on the Xbox One and probably even the PlayStation 4 because they are so similarly built to that of a PC. Stuff like Halo 4, which is so unique to the Xbox 360's architecture, that might be a different issue. But what they did with the Xbox One to Xbox, the original Xbox to Xbox 360
I know, I'm so confused
games,
also.
I know, is over time they recoded them so they would work on the 360.
That's right.
And there's no reason that they wouldn't do that, at least for the top and the most well-known titles from this generation.
Yeah, I mean, you can get Psychonauts on everything now, right? So,
yes, you can.
Yeah. So you're not concerned about backward compatibility. Are you concerned about backward compatibility at all?
I'm not concerned. I mean, for a long time, I had a Super Nintendo, a Nintendo 64, a GameCube. I had a lot of consoles. Now I need an Xbox 360, an Xbox One. I need the current gen and then the next gen. That's still not that many, so I'm not that worried about it.
All right, so Adam, you alluded to the fact that gamers were not overly happy with what they heard.
No.
And so what's going on there?
Well, what it is there was such a focus on entertainment, and I think Microsoft really poorly gambled on this one, that this is their first introduction of the new console. Right. They were going on Spike Television, they were streaming to anything that could possibly stream them, and I don't know who they thought that audience was that was going to tune in. That audience is core gamers.
Right.
And when then they start to go into all the entertainment, and to Microsoft's credit, they did make an announcement that this was not going to be very game focused, but they didn't reach all of those ears. Yeah. They were very entertainment focused, and a lot of young people, I've learned, don't watch television. And so a lot of that was not very relevant to them. Then they went into sports, and then they went to Call of Duty, and really those two aspects of video games can be very toxic to core gamers because that really is more of a broad mass appeal. They didn't feel that anyone was talking to them, and those key issues, backwards compatibility, whether or not it plays used games, and the prevalent issue of is it always online, were not addressed. And they felt that there was just a lot of pivoting, and they were being alienated, and they were just selling an entertainment console, despite the fact that Microsoft has been quite clear. E3 is part 2 of this press conference where it'll be games. They said they have 15 new IPs to release over the next 2 holidays.
Wow.
That is massive. I'm sorry, 15 new exclusive games, 8 of which are new IPs.
IP.
That is unprecedented for Microsoft. And
a lot of products.
they would have benefited themselves by showing more of that just to kind of put their money where their mouth is.
Justin, what do you think? Did they blow this?
I don't know that they blew it. I think a lot of it goes into setting poor expectations.
Yes.
Yeah. They said at the conference, we'll have more at E3, but I don't think they did enough prior to Tuesday to really set up that this is for mainstream media. This is for lifestyle magazines.
Right.
Like, this is about the hardware and the tech. For the gamers, you're going to get stuff at E3.
Right.
They did that at the conference, but a lot of us went into Tuesday thinking that we were going to get a lot more video gaming news.
And Microsoft gets so on message, and I felt they were actually a little bit more personable than they have been at other E3 press conferences. But I was sitting in the audience, and there was this very artificial cheering. I was in the back of the room. I couldn't figure out where the cheering and clapping was coming from because myself and none of my colleagues were actually doing that. And it's like moments like that also just start to make you question things. When they feel the need to create that artifice, you wonder, okay, what's being hidden here? And I think a lot of people that were even in attendance walked away very, very skeptical and uncertain. And I think it's only been in the past few days that we've kind of warmed up again that they might actually be onto something here.
Yeah, I remember early on in my career as a journalist going to the launch for General Magic when they released Magic Cap and their new General Magic device. I actually have the Wikipedia page up if you have no idea what I'm talking about. But it's the same thing. They'd stuffed it with all their employees, and we were all sitting there being like, huh? And there was applause all around us. And the stupidest feature you'd ever heard of was brought up, like, we're going to save email addresses for everybody you email. And the room broke out in applause. We're all like, oh, they have totally stacked this room. And that was a red herring to us.
Yeah.
That was a problem. You saw the same thing.
When Eric Hirshberg, president of Activision, comes out on the stage to rapturous applause, Yeah, most people's antennas decide to go up.
That's super funny. So what do you think about the event overall? Like, what would you have done differently?
I think that what they could have done was tied some of that amazing new technology into the video games.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
They have a lot of amazing things in that box. For a gamer, they didn't really give any reason to use any of that tech. But if they would have shown how all of the stuff that they talked about ties into the playing of games and really painted a more coherent, complete picture, I think that would have done a lot.
And, it's funny because the whole thing is they're trying to have this all-in-one box with all these, these interesting interconnected possibilities, but they're presenting it as these siloed aspects of the technology, and I think that they're completely undermining their own point and message by doing that.
Hey, Adam, I want to talk about something specifically that you brought up, the always-on issue, which has been a concern, right? I mean, Justin, I don't know about you, but I don't know if I'm going to have my Xbox always connected to the internet. I mean, the internet could go down. What happens? I want to play games.
So there's two things. It will slightly be always on, as in powered on. That's how you can say Xbox on.
Right.
So, but always online. This was also not clearly addressed. My source yesterday told me that while it will be always online insofar as over a certain time period, it may be as short as 24 hours or maybe like up to 72 hours. There will be one handshake. It'll ping your console to verify that it is online, but is not looking for a persistent, strong internet connection in perpetuity.
So you need an internet connection to actually use the one to do anything.
Yes. It will play. They've confirmed it'll play Blu-ray movies when it isn't. If it isn't connected to the internet. It is unclear what happens if it tries to check that you're online and it doesn't. I wouldn't be surprised if this has something to do with putting the game in, it going onto your hard drive, and it's doing some type of registration.
Right.
That it really is kind of a check-in. And I think the best analogous thing to this is, say, with Steam. If you want to go offline, you have to first be online to go into offline mode. That this isn't as odious a concept if you start to look at it in that framework. It sounds like there's, for whatever reason, this thing has to be online at some point, and they're trying to make it as least onerous as possible.
But what about people who use Xboxes in areas where they can't go online? I mean, the military is a big user of video games. I mean, I know a lot of people play the Xbox they're in Afghanistan or Iraq and places where they can't have an internet connection. I mean, that seems like a problem.
Similarly, I've been told that for the military, they are sensitive to that and are trying to have a unique workaround. Obviously, because of military intelligence, you just can't have outgoing internet connections. I think the issue with those who are in places that have no internet connection, I mean, I honestly don't know how much of their market is comprised of people in that situation. It kind of sucks. It's something I've been struggling with. I don't want to sound cold-hearted, but the issue that's being faced there is not sort of Microsoft's problem. It's, I think, the federal government being really, really short-sighted in not investing in getting this country wired up to the standards of something like South Korea. And it's kind of a strange reframing of the issue if Microsoft has to kind of change their technology to accommodate sort of a failing in our electronic infrastructure.
Wait, there's a big difference between that and people over in Iraq who are worried about, getting internet connections into military bases.
No, the two things. I mean, I think the military.
You can have a dial-up connection and have it work. Although I don't think there's a modem on it, is there?
That's a great question. I have no idea.
I would say probably not, if I had to guess. But
so does this always connect to the internet issue worry you, Justin?
For me personally, it doesn't worry me. My Xbox 360 is connected to the internet whenever it's on anyway. I think that, it is a question of how many people out there have a 360 that aren't using Live, that aren't online.
Yeah.
I would hope that Microsoft sort of did the numbers and figured out that it was worth pushing forward with an always-on system, that it wouldn't alienate too many of their customers.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's just, I think it sounds bad in concept, but it's pretty, I think for most people. I was doing one of my Address the Sesses, where I think we had quite a few thousand people in there. And I went through and just talked to people that give me your specific situation where always online is going to impact you. And that's where it's like you could hypothesize the scenario where power's gone off, I can't access my games. And I'm thinking, well, if the power's off, your TV probably isn't working either. And, it sounds worse than I think in the practical application. And Microsoft's going to have to hold their nose and kind of barrel through and get this thing, because I think the benefits for them in the long run are just too good.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm just thinking about, there I am in the woods in my house. The power goes out, my generator kicks in. it's 5 days until I get more power because a hurricane just went through because of
there's a
global
bear.
warming. All I want to do is play my video games and just, and I can't. I'm just worried about it. I don't know. I'm gonna let this one go. I have a question for both of you. I'll start with you first, Justin. We've been talking about all this other stuff. Is this going to be a good gaming box?
I am hopeful. It's really hard to say because we haven't seen what it can do for just gaming, but the 360 is a great box. I'm hopeful. I'm going to buy one, and
so you're optimistic I'll buy one and find out. Adam, is it going to be a good gaming box?
Well, I think it'll be a fine gaming box. Whether or not they can stand up to Sony, what Sony's ace in the hole has been, they own these incredibly talented studios. They have Naughty Dog, who's just about to come out with Last of Us and have done the Uncharted series. Sony's very good at having these unique titles to their system that really give it a definition. Microsoft, they have Halo and Gears of War, but they don't really have that nice, robust library of games that says that's what Microsoft represents. But when they're saying they have 15 new titles, 8 of which are new IPs, that at least gives me some hope that they understand that that's going to be essential. You have two systems that have very similar architectures. It's going to come down to the software. So I don't know if they're going to live or die on that, but in terms of its success with that core gaming audience, E3, I said this before, I think the final judgment in sort of seeing how they presented themselves is going to come at E3.
So another interesting thing happening in the Xbox world was that they announced a live-action Halo series.
Yeah.
Right? Steven Spielberg is going to create this Halo show, and that the thing that I found was really interesting is that we've already had some of this stuff, right? I mean, Machinima did one. I think they did.
It was called Forward Unto Dawn.
Right, exactly. But here, what they're talking about is something at the quality of Game of Thrones, which I think is amazing. So, are you guys excited about this series? Do you think it's just going to be a waste of money? What do you think, first of all? Is this like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to watch Steven Spielberg doing Halo?
I mean, I guess it depends on how much involvement he really has in the project, right? Like, is he really creating it? I'm skeptical of that.
He might just drive by the set and wave every couple of days.
Exactly.
It's an EP title.
What I think is more interesting is the way that they're tying everything together. They've said like the way that you can update achievements and they'll go from game to game. If you get achievements for watching the show,
oh, that's a really good idea, right?
If they're really tying everything
I
together
got a
like
badge
that,
for watching all 12 episodes this weekend.
Yeah,
it's gamification. I know people hate that word, but that's the clearest example of it.
Well, do you think, speaking of gamification, do you think that because the Xbox is this interactive platform, and the Xbox One even more so, do you think they'll add those elements into this program where it's going to be more than just a linear show?
I think so. They made this kind of funny little comment. I think it was part of their justification for why you want to always be online with this, that achievements have become such a big deal in this generation that they're always set in stone when you start the game, but now they can have ones that are more modular and they will evolve over time. I think that starts to tie into what they're doing with this television show, that there's some linkage. I do think what was said in that aspect of the presentation might be the most vaporous of all of them. This has been this Rosetta Stone of the entertainment industry for so long. And as someone who has been at the intersection of kind of old school entertainment industry and video games, they don't always mix, and everyone comes up with these great kind of conceptual ideas. They just can't be put into practice. And anyone who says that the TV will be more immersive, as someone who once worked in television, you don't want to be immersed in me. It's not a good idea.
Oh, I'll bet there are people who do. So we're gonna end as we've gone on and on about the Xbox, which is actually probably pretty good. I want to end with talking about Apple for a minute, because Apple rumored to do stuff with Apple TV. They're going to totally change television. Steve Jobs in his deathbed is like, I figured it out. Does this kind of box Apple out? And I'll start with you, Justin.
It's tough to say. I mean, from what Microsoft is doing with Xbox One, it sounds like a lot of the things that have been rumored about an Apple television set. And an Apple television set would be great at doing a lot of things, but Microsoft has that sort of key in with the gaming community.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know that I would buy an Xbox One to plug into an Apple television set if they're both doing such similar things, but the Xbox is going to do a whole bunch of other things. it seems like they might have been beaten to the punch on this one.
Yeah, what do you think, Adam?
I think it's really the games. I mean, you know, Steve Jobs was notorious for wanting to keep games off of most of these Apple products. And to the extent that obviously there are tons of games available for the iPhone and for the iPad, you don't see Apple kind of making that a signature element of its system. And we're not seeing games anywhere near at the robust level that you're going to be getting on the Xbox One. I think that when you consider how much of television usage is spent on video games, it definitely gives the Xbox One a huge angle. I mean, Apple TV would look lacking even with the games that are currently available on iOS.
So how many households do you think, and I'll start with you, Adam, how many households do you think, you can do percentage or million or whatever, or just general, will buy an Xbox One and hardly ever use it for gaming?
In the first 2 years, I would put it at 10%. I would say by the middle of its system, we're looking at maybe 40-45%.
So in 5 to 7 years?
Yeah.
What do you think, Justin?
I think that's probably a fair estimate. I mean, my father, who doesn't really play games, he has a Wii, he really uses it for Netflix primarily. He's pretty excited about Xbox One. He thinks that the NFL integration is fantastic.
We didn't even talk about the NFL,
it's fantastic.
right?
You know, there are a lot of things that he thinks are really cool, and they didn't talk about games. So I think that they are going to get into a lot of homes, and video gaming is not going to be the primary use
I think
of
what's
it.
going to happen, and this happened to some extent with the 360, the gamer's going to get it in the home, and then all these other people are going to find a usage for it, and there's all these ancillary revenue streams for Microsoft coming from mom, dad, grandma, and grandpa.
Okay, what do you think about the hardware design? Kind of ugly,
it's
right?
awful.
It's awful. It's terrible.
It looks like a Betamax player. it's just, I've never, I mean, and I was going to ask you guys, because I don't understand the technical that well. Why would that need to be so big?
Probably cooling, I think, because you've got a really heavy-duty processor in there.
Yeah.
You need cooling. I mean, those big processors need... And remember the first Xbox, Xbox 360 was so loud, right?
Yes, it was.
And that's because they had that big honking fan going... Shoo! And I think what they're trying to do is work on airflow. I don't know. That's just me off the top of my head. I'm probably completely wrong.
But yeah, I mean, it's big. At the end of the day, I think a lot of us put these behind doors in cabinets under our TV. But I was excited to see what the box looked like, because it would give us an indication of how do you design for 10 years out, or who knows, even further than that. Apparently, large black boxes is what the future has in store.
Well, there's... go ahead, Justin.
I was going to say, I don't think that Microsoft industrial design is quite at the level of Apple's. But I actually really like the look of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
I think that it has that sort of very sort of classic meets modern look to it that Apple is very fond of. I'm really into that kind of thing. My design-minded friends may judge me for this, but I think that it's probably one of the better devices Microsoft has designed from a physical standpoint.
Cool. Put it on a shelf. Take a look at it. That's all the time we have for this episode. There's going to be a lot more about the Xbox coming out. You're going to E3, Adam, with all of the Rev 3 games guys. We'll be covering that to death with hundreds of pieces of content, live streams, all that and more, even booth babes, who knows. Then we'll be talking about a lot more here on Downloaded as well. So just the beginning of us covering this great transition from Xbox 360 to Xbox One, PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4, tablet gaming, social gaming. We haven't talked about that, but we're going to leave that for another day. Thanks a lot for joining us. Adam, thank you very much for coming in. Justin, thank you very much for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
That is all the time we have. If you have comments, questions, suggestions, just want to rant about the Xbox One and tell us what you thought, put it in the comments below. And until next time, you've been watching Downloaded.
Level 1.